What happens when one of Hollywood's biggest legends shows up for what is supposed to be a calm morning interview, only to have the host steer into territory the guest assumed was off-limits? The set of the Sunday morning talk show turned into a battleground when Sylvester Stallone found himself defending not just his career, but his entire legacy over questions that began respectful and ended up confrontational in minutes. This wasn't your usual promotional appearance. This was raw, unfiltered, and it got tense fast. Before we dive in exactly what triggered Stallone's anger, make sure you hit subscribe and drop a comment telling us what you think about celebrities pushing back. Do they have the right to draw boundaries, or should everything about their career be open for scrutiny? Now, let's get into what really happened. The interview began smoothly. The host, Willie Geist, opened by thanking Stallone for being there. Stallone appeared relaxed, leaning back in his chair with that familiar half-smile that has been part of his public identity for decades. Geist asked light questions at first, things like how it felt to return to action films at his age, whether he ever considered slowing down. Stallone responded with his characteristic charm. He said that action films are in his blood, that he can't picture doing anything else, and that age is just a number when your passion is alive. He shared some stories about training for his recent roles, a few light jokes about working with younger actors, and even joked how every morning his body reminds him he's no longer 25. The audience chuckled. Everything felt normal. But then just changed direction. He brought up Stallone's early career, particularly the years before he broke through with Rocky. On the surface, it seemed like normal interview fare, a rags-to-riches background story viewers love. But the way Geist phrased his questions felt different. He spoke about how Stallone had been desperate back then, how he'd accepted roles in films he might not have been proud of, and suggested that some people believed that his eventual success was more about luck than talent. Stallone's demeanor shifted immediately. The smile disappeared, his posture went rigid. He looked Geist in the eye and asked, "Excuse me, what is it you're trying to get at here?" Geist, either oblivious to the shift in tone or choosing to ignore it, pushed on. "Well," he said, "there's been a lot of talk over the years that maybe Rocky was a fluke, that you were just lucky to be in the right place at the right time. Some critics argue that you never really reached those heights again." Stallone's jaw tightened. He leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. "A fluke? You think Rocky was a fluke?" Geist tried to soften the blow, claiming he was only echoing what some critics had said, not his own view. But Stallone wasn't buying it. No, stop right there," he cut in. "You don't get to say that and then hide behind some critics said. You brought it up. You're on national TV, implying the greatest achievement of my life was sheer dumb luck. So fine, let's talk about it. Let's really talk about it." The atmosphere changed instantly. The studio felt heavy. Geist shifted in his seat, caught off guard by how quick the tone climbed. He attempted to clarify, saying he respected Stallone's work and that he didn't intend to downgrade his achievements. But Stallone would not back down. "Then why say it at all?" he asked. "Why bring it up?" he demanded. "Do you know what I went through to get Rocky made? Do you know that many people told me I was crazy, that I should take the money and let someone else play the role? I fought for that film. I wrote it. I lived it. And you're going to sit there and call it a fluke?" Geist tried to steer the conversation toward safer topics. He suggested they move on to upcoming projects or what excites Stallone now. But Stallone wasn't finished. "No," he said firmly. "We're not done. Not yet." He leaned forward again, voice rising slightly. "This is exactly the problem with interviews like this. You call someone in, you act like you want a pleasant chat, and then you slip in these little barbs, little insults, expecting us to smile and shrug them off. Not today. Not this time." There was silence. This was no longer light Sunday morning talk. This was confrontation. The audience, previously relaxed and cheerful, grew still. Geist, to his credit, tried to maintain his calm. He said he aimed for honesty. Part of a truthful conversation involves acknowledging different views, even critical ones. Stallone shook his head. "You think honesty is tossing out a loaded question and watching someone flinch," he said. "There's a difference between exploring a past and undermining someone's life's work." He paused, then added, "I've been in this business 50 years. I made characters people around the world loved. I've acted, directed, produced, written, built stories that made billions. And yet you choose to question the one moment that put me on the map. That's not honest. That's disrespectful. Just tried to speak again, but Stallone raised his hand, signaling he wasn't done. You mentioned the films I did before Rocky, the ones some say I should be ashamed of. You know what? I did what I had to do to survive. I was broke. I had no guarantee. I took any chance I could get because I believed in my path. But you're using that as a weapon to undermine everything I did later. And that's cheap. Just, visibly uncomfortable, tried to reassure him that wasn't the point, but Stallone wasn't convinced. A full picture, he challenging said. Yes, but a full picture does not mean rewriting history to fit your angle. Context matters. History matters. You can't just throw out pieces that fit your narrative and call it honesty. The camera caught everyone nodding slightly, but then just made a move that pushed the tension further. So let me ask you. Maybe some critics are right. Maybe there's some validity. Do you ever feel like on some level you wondered whether those criticisms had merit? The studio went quiet. Stallone stared at him for a long moment. You think I have self-doubt about Rocky? About everything I've built? Let me make this clear. I don't. Not for a second. His voice was cold, hard. The only doubt I have right now is whether having this interview was a good idea. The weight of those words hung in the air. Gist, clearly taken aback, tried damage control. He said he just wanted to understand how Stallone dealt with criticism over the years. Stallone didn't flinch. Criticism, he said. I've handled it before. But what you offered was not criticism. It was accusation disguised as conversation. He leaned back but kept his eyes locked on Gist. I know what I've done. I know every drop of sweat, every risk, every gamble I took. And when someone tries to reduce that to luck or timing, that's not about truth. That's about cheap storytelling. Gist opened his mouth as if to reply. Stallone held up a hand. Think about this, he said. Maybe the reason you're zeroing in on those old criticisms, the doubt, the failures, the so-called missteps, maybe it's not because they matter. Maybe it's because controversy sells. Because you think conflict gets attention. But what about what I built? What about the franchises, the fans, the lives I touched? You want to talk about that? Or you'd rather circle back to the doubts again because that's easier? For a moment it looked like Gist might change pace. He lowered his head, glancing at his notes. Then he finally tried to offer an apology. If Stallone felt disrespected, that was not the intention. Stallone watched him, calm, composed, then shook his head slowly. Apologies, he said quietly, are meaningless if you don't own what you did, if you don't acknowledge how this conversation started. He paused. If you want to ask hard questions, fine. Be ready to stand by them. Don't come in pretending it's a friendly chat and sneak in a jab. The studio sat in silence. The audience, once expectant and cheerful, now watched with tension. Gist spoke again, more gently this time. He said that part of being in the public eye means handling both praise and criticism. He believed in Stallone's stature, his legacy, his contributions. But he still felt that for such a long and storied career, it's fair to look at both the highs and lows. Stallone responded, his voice firm but quieter. Of course I made mistakes. Of course I had films that didn't work out. But I own them. I've made choices, sometimes I regret them. What I don't accept is people using those missteps to deny everything else. It's like painting over a whole mural just because one brushstroke wasn't perfect. Gist nodded slowly, acknowledging the point. So when some say you coasted on the success of Rocky or Rambo, or accuse you of relying on nostalgia rather than pushing boundaries, what do you say to that? He asked. Stallone didn't hesitate. Those people, he said, they're lazy. It's easy to judge from the outside. It's easy to dismiss risk as playing it safe. They haven't lived it. They haven't bled for these stories, for these characters. They don't know what it takes. Gist tried, again, to present the other perspective. Some viewers see reusing old beloved characters as safe. They worry the actor isn't evolving, that he's stuck in the past. Stallone's eyes sharpened. Playing it safe? He echoed. You have no idea how hard it is to bring back a character people love and try to honor what made it special, while also making it mean something new. That isn't safe. That's terrifying. If you get it wrong, there's no mercy. People crush you for it. I've taken more chances in my career than many ever will. His voice rose. So don't confuse my willingness to dive back in with laziness. That's not what this is. Just leaned in as if ready to challenge that point. Then tell me, he said slowly, what risks have you taken that you feel go unrecognized? Stallone leaned forward, calm again. Every film I've directed, every script I wrote, every time I bet on a project I believed in when no one else did, every time I put my own money or my own reputation on the line just to tell a story I cared about. Sometimes it hit, sometimes it failed, but I tried. That's the risk. Not to stand still, to move forward, even if the odds are against you. Just agreed that was a fair distinction between creative risks and business risks. He said many people think you took career risks. Fewer see the creative ones. Stallone's eyes narrowed. Risk is risk, he said. It doesn't matter if it's creative or business or personal. Risk is always risk. The cost is always real. You're acting like there's a neat little box that separates them. There isn't. Gist raised his hands in surrender, as if conceding the point. I'm just trying to understand, he said. From the outside, some see someone who found something that worked and stuck with it. They think you played it safe. What do you say to them? Stallone's expression darkened. That's insulting, he said simply. It's a lazy judgment. A comforting story for people who don't want to see the hard work. You say you want my perspective, but you keep looking through a narrow lens. That's not conversation. That's prosecution. The word felt heavy and final. Gist's shoulders slumped slightly. For the first time, his professional mask seemed to slip. He looked at Stallone, uncertain. Stallone sat back, arms crossed. The tension remained thick. Finally, Gist spoke again, quieter, measured. He said that maybe they did lean too heavily into critical framing. He admitted that sometimes interviews chase controversy because that draws attention. Stallone nodded slowly. Then ask about the work, he said quietly. Ask about the characters, the stories, the risk. But don't come looking for conflict. Not if you don't own it. For once, the room was quiet enough you could hear the breathing. The audience that came expecting a cheerful chat, a gentle Sunday conversation, got something entirely different. A confrontation, a showdown, a demand for respect. Stallone looked at Gist one final time. What you might call hard questions, he said. What some call criticism, that's your choice. My choice was to tell the truth. My truth. Gist closed his mouth, nodded slightly, and flicked through his notes. For the rest of the show, the conversation stayed awkward. The soft tones, easy jokes, laughter, gone. In their place, tension, uneasy silences, and a sense that something had broken. What began as a friendly interview had transformed into something far more serious. A man defending the value of his work, his effort, and his life's achievements from being reduced to a footnote, a rumor, a careless dismissal. When the cameras turned off, you could almost feel the weight of unspoken things. The audience didn't cheer. They didn't laugh. They sat, stunned. And if you asked Stallone, he didn't back down. He didn't soften. The only thing he softened was his tone. His message remained clear. If you want the truth, don't wrap it in hidden jabs. Don't dress it up as curiosity or journalistic interest. Ask directly, but be prepared for the answer.